Good morning, everyone. My name is Andrés González. Today I'm going to share with you an experience with a project that we call it internally IDK. It's about connecting APIs, developers, bots, and customers with Django, channels, and VueJS. So what we're going to talk today, first who we are, introduction, explain a little about the problem that we are resolving with this tool, the challenges as a service provider, software development companies mainly, and what was our solution, a successful service provider model, that is the software that we developed called IDK. Then we are going to talk a little about the architecture, the software architecture, and why we implemented a real-time application, okay, and why you shouldn't implement a real-time application. Then discuss a little about Django channels, VueJS, and WebSockets, and then our experience, the performance challenges, and a little about what we can learn from all the data that we are accumulating in our application. And finally, conclusions. So first of all, I want to introduce myself. As I said, my name is Andrés González. I work as CTO at Swaps. There is a software development company based in the United States. And specifically about IDK software, I'm being more like the software architect. I also want to mention Jose Ariza, who is also the IDK core developer. He was going to be in the meeting with me, but I'm going to be myself today. Okay, so I'm going to explain a little about the reason and a brief history to understand better what is the problem that we are resolving right now. Okay, so once upon a time, there was a company like my company, maybe like the company that you are working, or maybe if you are an entrepreneur, maybe you are having this issue as a provider, and they used to work very hard. And let's suppose that we are providing an excellent service, a good quality service, to the clients. So our clients that normally are requiring some work, development work. But first, the company was not being very efficient. But also, they had to be explaining and wasting time at the end of every month when they were sending the invoices, because they were disputing the invoices every month. So this company would love to focus more on the business. What is the business? Develop software, or maybe other services that you are providing, and avoid client disputes, right? So basically, you want something that is cool. You want a cool relationship between your clients and you as a service provider. It's a tough relationship because at the end, you are exchanging knowledge and time for money, right? And you just want to get paid, and the clients just want a good service. So the idea is to avoid disputes. You don't want a fight between clients and providers. You want everything cool, so the idea is to avoid this. And sometimes the problems are more related with communications, reports, and things like that, that if you provide in an early stage, a report could save a whole project of several months. Okay? So in order to see what is going on with this, we need to understand what is the demand for clients and service providers. Clients expect quality. They need to know what to expect during the project and at the end of the project. If something changes, they need to know it. They want to get notified about any change, receive the services on time. Deadlines, we need to achieve the deadlines and don't exceed the budget. Obviously, they are counting on a budget. And it's critical, you said, okay, your project is going to cost twice the initial estimate. On the other side, service providers want to provide a good quality, get paid, deliver on time, know the team capacity, and monitor team performance. Sometimes it could look hard to do it, but the idea with this, or with any service provider, is that you do it. It's not good that you are saying, you're promising things that you're not going to achieve. All right? So this is our model, and this can be seen just like a standard process, and maybe a standard process that any company follows. That is, if you see the part above, is just you get a requirement, you provide an estimate, you execute it, you report to the client, and then you invoice. This is the critical part. Normally, you could fail in some of this, or you can have success, and everything is going to be good at the end of the time. Here we can see that we have something additional, is that in order to execute well, we need to be monitoring the performance, and also learn from that performance. You don't need any software for that, but you can just do it. You know that one of the most important things about a software developer is that you learn and you do things in a better way. You estimate better the next time and execute better the next time. But sometimes you can be doing this very good, but the reports are critical too. So if you provide notifications with email and things like that, or meetings, okay, maybe you are going to be in control of your client. But this is really what we implemented in an automated way with software. So for example, you can see that we have, okay, notifications with email, chatbots, browser. So this is the tool that we are doing. And at the end, since what we did was to connect all of this with all the software that we are having, at the end, the invoice cannot be automated, the notifications can be automated, performance can be automated, and at the end, this is in our company, for example, is our core of business. Basically, we can focus more on developing, providing good quality software, and this is something that's our tool. So we're going to see how we do this. And in the part of the team performance, you will say, okay, how I'm going to measure the performance? Okay, there are two critical components in any organization that are providing software, is the team member and the task. You can value, there are so many factors, but in our model, we are taking into account for a team member, the experience, the time that is invested on every task. This reprocess is about how many times you need to open again the task or deliver, or you cannot deliver the task because there is a failure, the test didn't pass, things like that. And obviously, a good quality in all sense is also measured there. In the same way, the task requires a due date. You need to achieve the due date. You need to be finished on the time in between the estimate. You should avoid the process and quality. So these are like the metrics that we are going to be using for this part, like the performance of a project and a client. So these are some screenshots of our tool. It's a Django application. Has login, has reports. These reports, as we will see later, are in real time. The clients or the project managers can see things like, okay, what is the budget? What is the status of the budget? What is the time invested on this? How is going the things in every day? And the project board with the tasks, things that you normally have internally. But in this case, we are just transparently providing this information to the client. Okay, so these are other screenshots. Company, you can create companies, invoices. You can control basically everything of your company with this web application. Profile, normal things like that. Okay, so now go to the software. So how was the architecture of everything? Okay, so we are implementing this with Jango. So all the Jango. And we have here in the client, the browser uses obviously JavaScript with VueJS. And the way to connect to these reports mainly is using channels. We didn't want to reinvent the wheel. So time tracking, task management, project management tools, all of them are connected to the application using API consumers. And obviously, we are saving some information in the database to generate the reports. So basically we consume this information, store in the database, and transmit this using channels and WebSockets. Okay, so the first question is, okay, why a real-time application? So there are some questions that you need to consider before starting to implement a real-time application. And when I say real-time application is, instead of using it the traditional way of HTTP, where you have a request and response, you want information that is in real time, that is using sockets. WebSockets in this case, you need to understand, okay, is the data being updated constantly? Obviously, we are working all the time. We are tracking time. We are using the project status change minute after minute. So it's a consideration. Are there multiple sources of information? Yes, as you could see before, there were like these tools for tracking time, tools for manage the projects. And do I need to know when something changes? So for example, let's imagine that your client the only job is to be there in the computer seeing what is going on with the project. Maybe your CEO also wants to know what is happening with the whole company. So if something changes, it's good that they can see it in real time, what is happening. So when something changes, let's say that the budget is reaching to 90%, so you need to do something. And there are multiple user visualizing data, as explained. Developers, team leaders, people like that are everybody connected to this application to see that information. Okay, so this was our roadmap, and how we came to this application was after first starting with a static application, initially using AngularJS. It doesn't matter, but it was the case. In that moment, we were using the traditional way, using just HTTP. So what happened? Okay, I need this report. It's going to information. The request is going to a traditional Django view. It's going to be processed in the view. If the external tool is slow, it could take seconds to deliver a response. And obviously, that was not the best approach. We considered using cache. It worked a little. But then we improved in the second version using polling, traditional polling using HTTP with an API. And another improvement was that, okay, don't leave everything to the view. Let's use Celery. So we have an asynchronous task. It connects to the external application. It creates the report, and then the application in the client is going to be asking, is it ready? Is it ready? And when it's ready, okay, it's going to display the application. In this version, we could improve it because, well, we moved through Vue.js. We will explain later why. But in this case, we were like, okay, we don't have to be asking all the time, polling, but we are going to be able to receive the information when it's ready. So with the help of Django channels, we could achieve this. And okay, so Django channels. A little about Django channels. As opposed to the views, we have something called consumers. We have channels. That is basically, they provide the interface to connect to our Django application. WebSockets use something completely different to HTTP. They have an implementation called ASCII for Django. And what we are transmitting in a channel, and in general in WebSockets, are messages. And we are connecting users to groups. So let's say that we have a company. This company has several people there, and there are other companies. Obviously, we only need to provide access to the WebSocket only to the company that the user belongs. And one company cannot see the information to other. So they are basically in different groups of channels. And in a communication in channel, basically, we have a connection. That is basically when the connection in the socket is established from the client to the server, and it's going to be ready to start listening requests or messages. In this case, it's messages. And the consumer is what receives the messages. And at the end, the same consumer is able to continue sending messages, or according to what they receive, it will execute a function or an internal procedure in our application. Maybe we'll save to the database, or we'll broadcast information to the group, and then the information will be provided to the right users. And without going into the details, these are like a consumer, basically. Connection, disconnect, receive. That I think the methods are self-describing. Connection, what to do when it disconnects, and what happens when a message is received. Okay, and this is, we cannot see all the code, but this is an example of how we have some URLs, because the protocol is different, so it uses something called routing inside channels. Here, for example, we have two different consumers for two different types of reports. And why VueJS? Really, WebSockets are supported by JavaScript by default, so you don't really need to use VueJS to use WebSockets. The only thing is that we wanted a framework, and since we had a Django application, our existing Django application, it was easier to just continue with the Django application and just in some sections, like widgets, implement individual VueJS applications for every report, and also use components where we are able to reuse the same components between the different VueJS applications. And okay, and in the client side is very similar to the Django side. We have JavaScript. This is just an example of how we connect or create a socket in the client, and then we just send the URL where the channel is going to be living, and we just start to listen some events. So these are the three events that are very similar: open, message, close. Open will send a request to create the channel and add to the group. And this message is in charge of handling the messages that are being received by the Django channels application, and close of what to do when the socket closes. Okay, so what were the challenges that we had in this application? First of all, we had issues with APIs. So one of the recommendations is avoid polling if possible. It's not always possible, because if you have an external API where they only provide a standard REST API and they don't provide webhooks, like for example, the case of GitHub, they have webhooks. You are able to, in GitHub, you are able to, every time that somebody push, you provide the URL where it will send some JSON request, and then we will handle in that way. Similar with other software like ClickUp that we use, but not all of them use webhooks. In the other side, as I explained a little, Celery, don't try to execute everything in a view that could be, first, an external service could be down, and if it's down, maybe your service will go down because everything is in the view. On the other hand, it can be very slow. It could take seconds. You should provide a response immediately if you are using HTTP. And then handle the other part, like provide the data, connection, and the process to accelerate tasks. And when it finishes, using channels, you can send information back to the client. And another good practice is about, since you are using external data from different services, and let's say that you're using a accounting system that you want to integrate. All of them are similar, but the fields and everything is different, so you need to normalize everything. So this is called skeleton objects. You want to read more about this, there is a very interesting article in this URL. And other challenge that we had as a provider was dealing with big amounts of data. So one recommendation is use models with unique IDs. And you normally could save a lot of information from a request from an external service, but just save the required information. If you don't need a specific data, don't save it, unless maybe you are going to use it for something else. And because your database could grow quickly. And if you need to search, always is a good idea if, depending obviously of the database, but you are searching the existing information, try to use a search engine. And basically, one of the lessons that is the purpose of this talk is about channels, and when we are talking about specifically about Django, channels allows you to stop pulling information and instead send data when it's ready. Okay. And okay, so going live, what we use, this is a simple approach. Basically, we have here an interface. You have here a Nginx server. It could be something else, but we normally use Nginx for everything. And there are two paths. This path is the HTTP, and this path is the WebSocket. So there are different options here. We use UWhiskey, but there are other options like Unicorn, where basically establish a connection with an internal socket in your machine. So Nginx can connect to the application, to the Django application easily, and just provide a standard HTTP server. And in the other side, we have Daphne. Daphne basically is an application that also provides a socket that we connect to Nginx, and is basically it works with ASCII, that is the implementation, so WebSockets can work with Django. So once you have this, everything can be talked to the Django, and in production, we will be able to handle socket communication. And the normal database, we use Redis. Actually, Daphne and ASCII also uses Redis. And here we have Celery that is used for the heavy task, the heavy stuff, and the task, and also uses Redis. Okay, so this is basically what we are doing here. We have this interface server, there is Nginx. We are sending in one side HTTP messages. We have the traditional, we have a consumer, we have a view, a request, it sends back always a response. In the case of a WebSocket using channels, in this case, we have messages, they are received by a consumer, and in this case, you can send something back or not necessarily you need to provide a response, and it can be immediately or just later, or just you can send something from the consumer to the clients directly because something happened, just a notification or something like that. In this chart that we got from this website, they are actually using in the same channel layer, or for example, with Daphne, you are able also to provide HTTP. So you don't need to do it as we did, WhiskEye and separate Daphne. Actually, you could also handle everything with Daphne, it supports for that. And this is more about how it's connected everything. Internally, we use WhiskEye, Daphne, and we use Supervisor, basically because these are processes in the system that they are managed with this Supervisor. And more or less, this is what I explained. Basically, in Nginx, you have like the two worlds. Basically, most of the application works with WhiskEye, and there is a route for the Daphne, and this is how it's handled here. Basically, they are two separate sockets that you can handle with your application. And this is Supervisor. Basically, these are the two processes that Supervisor is in charge to have control. And it's good because normally you want to have a monitor, and you can connect actually this to an external monitor to see what is going on with this. Because if, for example, you could have you could have the application running normally, but if Daphne goes down, your WebSocket will stop working. So, and in the other hand, Celery is also other thing that is also using the Django application. So at the end, it's like three things using the Django application that we just created. Obviously, different. One is using views, one other is using consumers, and in this case are the tasks in Celery. And well, this is just something that we created internally. So as I explained before, we are learning from data, right? So all the information that is collected, every time that a developer tracks time, finish a task or anything, we are measuring that. So how we are measuring that basically is very simple. You just define an estimated effort in your task. That's the ideal. And you have a real effort. Basically, this is a simple rate, and you can define the estimate of a task with this. And just having a mean will be too naive, so we implemented with this formula that actually considers that there are bad days. There are not always you're going to have the same performance, so there are some data that you can exclude from the formula and try to have something that is more accurate, and you just exclude the marginal data. And what is for the future? Or not really the future, because this is something that we are already working on this, is basically improve this part about building a model that can predict the real spend effort for a team member, and it's basically a hybrid between traditional and web-based cost estimate models. So the software is changing. There are several methodologies. You can call the unit time, you can call the unit story points, but at the end, with that data, we are getting good results, and actually, it helps us a lot to be better in our job and avoid disputes, and obviously, by using also the reports. And to finish, we just saw basically an example about how to implement, how to take advantage of Django. This software helps to integrate, process, transmit data to the users, help this with this relationship between clients and provider to be easier. And also at the end, every developer, every project manager is able to execute better the job. And as you can see, the simplicity that has Django channels and VueJS help us a lot to have an application that is really fast and it works very good, and there are several people connected to this. And basically, this is the core of a company. And here are some references about some things that you are interested to know more about this. If you want also to know about the technical aspects about Django channels and WebSockets and VueJS, I invite you to a workshop that we will have tomorrow at 11 a.m. is the time. And we will see in more detail the technical aspect of how to create an application using Django channels. And first, I want to thank to all my team that from their disciplines, each one is helping to build this project. And thank you, all of you, for being in this meeting.